Good evening and a very warm welcome to this evening's panel discussion. I'm Aparna Chandrasekharan, Education USA Advisor at the Chennai Center of Education USA program here in India. We are delighted that you've joined us for this session today. Today's program is being hosted as part of the series of events that we're hosting for the International Education Week. And I'm delighted to have a panel of distinguished faculty and two special students, one who is joining us from India and another who is joining us from the United States today. The two faculty members are joining us from Lehigh University, and all four panelists will provide us with important insights on how you can cope with learning in a virtual environment, especially given the pandemic times. We'll begin with a short introduction to Education USA and followed by the session objectives, and then we'll go into the panel discussion. To all the students who have joined us live on Facebook live stream, please make sure that you're using headphones for enhanced audio quality of today's program. And you can type in your questions in the comments section as well. Today, we'll start with a brief introduction to the International Education Week. We'll talk about Education USA program and the services that we offer. We'll cover the session objectives and then, of course, give you an introduction to our panelists who've joined us today. Following that, we'll go through a series of questions that we will be putting across to our panelists. And then we'll open it up for the Q&A with students who will be typing their questions in the Facebook comments page. So I request all students who are watching this session live on Facebook to start typing their questions and posting them. And my colleagues will help me in collating them, and we will put them across to our panelists in the Q&A segment, which is at the end of the session. Thank you again, students, for joining us for today's event. So the International Education Week is a joint initiative of the US Department of State and the US Department of Education, and it is aimed at celebrating the benefits of international education and exchange worldwide. It promotes programs that prepare Americans for a global environment and attracts future leaders from abroad to study, learn, and exchange experiences in the United States. This year, the International Education Week, the theme is Engaged, Resilient, and Global, and we are celebrating all events in this week of November 16th to 23rd. I'll now share a brief introduction to the Education USA program. We are supported by the US Department of State, and our mandate is to provide accurate, current, comprehensive information on US higher education. We come under the Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs, and we are the official source of information on US higher education. We are a global network of 430 plus advising centers in over 170 countries. And in India, we have 7 Education USA centers, which are located in the cities of Ahmedabad, Bengaluru, Chennai, Hyderabad, Kolkata, and New Delhi. To learn more about Education USA and our programs, you can visit our website, which is educationusa.state.gov. We have a range of services that we offer to students. Most of our services are free, but we also have a paid advising and counseling sort of membership service. But we do urge our students who are watching us live today to check out our calendar of events, not just for the International Education Week, but year-round. We have a host of basic orientation sessions, thematic sessions, webinars. We have interactive sessions with students. We invite faculty and admissions representatives from US universities. We invite alumni and current students to join us for these sessions. And also Education USA advisors host these sessions and sometimes present these sessions as well. So I do urge you to look up our calendar of events. I have provided the link on the screen. You can check out what our upcoming events are for this week, the IEW week, as well as our subsequent program schedules will be available. If in case you're interested to be part of our database, student database, and you wish to receive regular updates from any of our Education USA centers in India, please sign up. The sign up link is also provided on the screen, and we'd be happy to include you in our database and send you regular updates of our events calendar. Like I mentioned, we do plenty of free virtual specialized information sessions on admission and the application process to US universities. And we also offer the free virtual basic orientation sessions. We run this pretty much every day, 6 days a week. So on Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday, we host this session from 3:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. And on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, we run this session from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. So you can even check our calendar of events, and you should be able to find information about how to join these basic orientation sessions. Like I mentioned earlier, we have also a paid membership service which is more like a one-on-one advising service where a student is assigned to an advisor, and we guide you on the US University application process. And another important service that we have is a national toll-free helpline for students who want to learn about US higher education. So I would request you to call this number 1-800-103-1231, and you should be able to speak with an advisor Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Of course, the helpline will not be available on any Indian or American holidays that we have, but otherwise on any working days, the helpline is available and an advisor should be able to speak with you to clarify your doubts. So here's some different ways in which you can connect with the Education USA program in India. So we have the Education USA India mobile application that you can download. It is free to download and it's available both on the Android and the iOS platforms. So a host of information on the 5 steps to US study is available, including contact information for our Education USA India centers. So do download the application and connect with us. That's a great way to connect with us. Other than that, we are also available on multiple social media platforms. You can reach out to us on the Facebook, which is Education USA India. You can reach out to us on Twitter, YouTube, as well as on our Instagram page. On our YouTube channel, we have a host of videos available, previously recorded sessions like these, which we have archived on YouTube. So I always tell students, for every step of the application process, there is a video available on the Education USA India YouTube page. And all these resources are free resources. So I would urge students to please visit our YouTube page as well as our other social media channels to stay abreast of our upcoming events, activities, and of course to watch these videos that we have shared with students. This is the contact information for our 7 centers. Of course, I've highlighted the Chennai center in bold because I'm an advisor with the Chennai center. And I have my colleague Shanti Mohan, who's another Education USA advisor. So between Shanti and me, we advise students in Chennai. But of course, we have other centers in the cities of Ahmedabad, Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Mumbai, and New Delhi as well. So these are just the contact information for our centers. So just wanted to share some interesting statistics with students who may not know much about higher education in the United States. US has over 4,700 accredited or recognized universities, and they range from community colleges that offer the associate's degree programs to liberal arts and science colleges and public and private universities. So the liberal arts and science colleges typically offer the 4-year bachelor's degree program. Very few of them have a master's program, but the public and private universities offer the 4-year bachelor's degree program. They offer the master's degree programs, and the Ph.D. and the postdoc programs as well. So there is a university available for every student in the United States, whatever your background or your academic expertise, there is a college or a university that you can apply to. Just to share some interesting information in the recent information that's come out from the Open Doors report that was released yesterday at the beginning of the International Education Week. So in the academic year 2019-20, as many as 10 lakh plus international students from around the world were studying in the United States. And out of that number, 1,93,000 students are from India alone. So as we speak, there are these many students who are pursuing either a associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a doctoral or a postdoctoral program in the United States. And hopefully we'll be adding some of you who are in the audience today and who are looking to apply to US universities in the future, in the coming years. Hopefully we'll add your numbers to these statistics when we speak next year at the International Education Week. And we look forward to interacting with you and guiding you on your US higher education journey. I now have the privilege of introducing our distinguished panel of faculty members and our student panelists. And I first of all thank all of them for taking time out. 3 of them are joining us from the United States, and I know it's quite an unearthly hour there. Quite early in the morning, and I appreciate your taking this time out and joining us today. And to our other panelist who is joining us from India, equally thank you, a big thank you for joining us today, Aradhna. So, excuse me. So Dr. Ganesh is an associate professor of mechanical engineering, and he's he's an associate professor of mechanical engineering and mechanics at Lehigh University. Dr. Greg Ryman is the vice provost for library and technology services. He's also the director of the Center for Innovation in Teaching and Learning and the co-director of the Lehigh Humanities Lab. Aradhna Mohan, who is currently studying in India, though she's already joined her US university program. She is currently pursuing her Ph.D. in applied psychology at the Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. And we have Sharadha Ramanathan, who is currently in the United States and pursuing her master's in IT and management at the University of Texas, Dallas. Sharadha joined the university in 2019 fall semester, whereas Aradhna has joined this year as a fall 2020 student. So I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all our panelists today, and thank you so much for joining us today. So we'll start with the panel discussion now, and I'll have a series of questions that we will be putting across to our panelists. And we'll start with our faculty panelists. Yeah. So my first question is to Dr. Balasubramanian. How have the university and faculty at your university helped students prepare for this transition to online learning? Particularly given this pandemic period has brought a lot of challenges for students as well as for universities in dealing with the program. So I was just wanting to understand, especially in the STEM area where there is a lot of research work and lab work, how have you helped students make this transition to online learning? And what suggestions do you have for students as best practices in terms of class participation or for building a relationship with faculty?
Aparna, thank you for introducing. So the primary thing when transitioning to online learning has been flexibility. So one mode does not fit for everyone because people are at different time zones. Students have different levels of facilities available to them, especially those who are away from home and living off campus. They can have only limited resources available to them. So flexibility has been the key thing with the transitioning process. So faculty have used multiple modes of offering lectures that can be from synchronous to asynchronous, recorded lectures, uh, using online platforms. So primary use has been for these platform called Course Site, which kind of helps to do online classroom management, as well as being flexible with when to meet with students, like office hours as well as lecture hours. So so all these lectures have been recorded for archival purposes and for students to view at a later time. Uh, there has been a lot of synchronous learning as well when students have actually requested for special office hours or special interaction with faculty as well as the teaching assistants to get kind of help, which they would normally do in person when the campus activities are uh, going on. The research part of thing has been a little bit more challenging, where students initially were kind of asked to stay away from the labs, but then gradually as the situation was brought under control and we got ourselves a little bit more educated about the pandemic, we were able to provide access based on mission critical research to students and then gradually to all the students, but with social distancing and all sorts of CDC guidelines in place to make sure that all of us are having a healthy atmosphere when even working in the labs. As far as teaching labs are concerned, several of the teaching labs were transitioned to an online mode where students could actually virtually participate in the labs through Zoom sessions as well as interactive platforms. However, it does not give you the same feeling as you would have in a physical experiment, but still it kind of helps you with the learning and some parallel approaches to kind of understanding how technology would work in a Internet of Things kind of environment. Aparna, you are muted.
Have you heard back from students that it's been very challenging to make this sort of transition to your online classes?
So I would say yes and no. So initially, some of the students who are more adept at in-class experiences, who are more interested in a physical environment to learn, they have had some initial challenges. Their learning curve has been a little bit steeper than many others who are more comfortable with online platforms. So again, it's a mix of students. Every student is an individual learner, so some have adapted to it more quickly, while others have taken a little bit of time to adjust to the new environment.
All right. My next question would be to Dr. Ryman. Some of the areas of concern for students has been about doing projects online and group projects and things like that, and even taking on exams online is something not many are familiar with, and perhaps the biggest concern is about how to do these internships, which they've had the opportunity to go for these curricular practical training or a cooperative learning experience, and now they'll either have to do it virtually, or they perhaps have lost the opportunity because the companies are not able to provide a virtual internship. So what are some of the tips that you would offer to sort of help students ace them while doing all this virtually? What would be your advice to students, and how can they sort of deal with the situation?
Thank you. And again, thank you for inviting me to the panel today. This is a great setup and a wonderful group of people putting this on. So to the students, I would say, connecting to what Ganesh said a moment ago about flexibility, I think part of the key to success is this mindset of flexibility and adaptability, that everything that you're going to be doing and maybe have been preparing to do for a long time has changed. It's a new environment. This is true for us faculty as well. Administration, we're sort of adapting to changing conditions day by day, sometimes hour by hour. And so to the extent that you expected it to be one way and it's now a different way, and to the extent that you hold on to your frustrations around that, I think it just makes it harder to adapt to the new situation. We would all like to get back into our labs and into our classrooms, and I think that can make it harder for us when we just sort of sit with the frustration rather than sort of adapt to the new environment. So one, the other word in addition to flexibility I would throw back is engagement, right? And this is the key word maybe we use when we think about course design and course delivery from our instructors and faculty perspective. How do you make sure that you're engaging students, whether that's in a pre-recorded lecture, an assignment, during a Zoom call, so students feel seen, so they feel heard, that you're sort of actually hearing back from their understanding of material. And the same thing applies into an internship environment, right? So and it applies from the student perspective as well, right? If one of the hardest things about teaching is when your students have all cameras off and they're feels like their heads are someplace else, right? Their minds and thoughts are not with you. So it's a two-way experience, right? The faculty have to sort of create engaging materials and engaging classroom experiences and simulated labs or whatever else you want to do. But the other side of it comes from students, right? To the extent that you show up ready to discuss, ready to participate, ready to make the best of a difficult situation. My eldest son had an internship this summer that was moved to fully virtual, right? And for a few days, he was also very disappointed because he wasn't going to get to live in the city where he thought he was going to get to live for this. But then he was relieved that at least it persisted in a virtual environment. And I think it was that transition moment when he went from that disappointment to like, okay, well, this is what it's going to be. And then again, showing up, like, being present, communicating with the people who are running the internship, communicating with your faculty in a classroom environment. That means showing up for office hours, right? Asking questions. I mean, in many ways, these are the same keys to success of an ordinary university experience, right? To the extent that you are as a student present and as a faculty member present for each other in the classroom, in office hours, working on assignments, that sort of thing. That will lead to greater success on both sides. So I know that's a challenging environment. Some of the things my colleague Ganesh said a moment ago, if you're struggling with internet connectivity or you don't have the tools to do this, right, those are the prerequisites before you can even try to be engaged, right? So that was another thing we as a university worked hard in the very early stages, make sure students had the technology that they needed, and same for our instructors, just to get us to to the starting point, right? And then we started worrying about, so how then do you also ensure that everyone is sort of connecting, and not just connecting in the internet sense, but connecting in the social and educational sense. And I think that same translates into the internship, making sure people feel connected in the teams, feel connected to their work, and then from the student side that you are then showing up, communicating with the person leading you through the internship or the course, and then taking care of yourself so you're ready to do your best.
As just a segue to that question and your response, Dr. Ryman, I just wanted to inquire, are the career centers at, say, Lehigh or other universities now also supporting students when they're applying for internships? Are they providing them some guidance on how to put together a resume which will appeal to, doing a virtual sort of internship? Or are they providing any other resources that might benefit students in applying for these virtual internships?
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting. One of the things we talk about a lot is how do we transition our courses, but all the other features of the university had to change as well, right? So everything from student services to career services along the way. So yeah, each of those areas also had to adapt in how they offer their support and programming to students. So we have a very active career center, Center for Career and Professional Development. So they do everything from helping students with prepare themselves professionally in terms of their materials, but then also prepare for interviews. They host interviews. So they've shifted to sort of offer that same kind of advice, but now just in the virtual space, right? So part of it is helping to find an internship or keep track of which ones are emerging, which ones are going away, which ones will be virtual. And then also, how do you prepare yourself for, say, a Zoom interview, right? And those kinds of things as well. So in the same way that we've all had to learn how to conduct our professional work in this new environment, the same thing's true for them, and the same thing's true for them helping students to make that transition as well. So this hasn't been easy. I don't want to make it sound like this has been easy for anyone. But all the programming that they previously offered continued on in the virtual space. Just in a little more challenging way, and I think true enough for our students, a difficult way, because again, some of those things people thought were going to happen, the companies couldn't pull them off, and then so they had to scramble. And so we've done our best as a university to support them to try to find something new or find some alternate way to spend their for the summertime, primarily was when the internships were taking place.
I take that point you make, Dr. Ryman, about the fact that, while it might be easier for us to speak about it now, but it's not been easy, whether it's for the universities, the administration, the faculty, and most importantly, perhaps for the students itself. It's not been easy. So at this juncture, I think I'd like to bring in our student panelists and ask them about what their experience has been like. And I think I'll start with Sharadha, who's already had the opportunity to join the university in person last year as a fall 2019 student, admit. And I'd like to ask you, Sharadha, I mean, can you share your perspective of making this transition from an on-campus to a virtual classroom? You've had the opportunity to have interaction with peers, to be part of activities in clubs on campus, to travel around the United States, to see places and meet people. And then suddenly the pandemic hits, and then you have to migrate to a virtual classroom. So what's it been like? What are some of the challenges and learning outcomes for you from this transition to virtual classrooms? And do you have any suggestions or advice for other students who are having to do this now?
Yes, first of all, hello, Aparna, and thank you for having us here in the event. And to be honest, it was difficult in the beginning because as a student who came here to do a master's, I was very, looking forward to going to classes and experiencing, the university and everything. And as someone who has experienced that for the first semester, it was very nice. I started becoming very reliant on going to classes, talking to faculty members and my students, discussing with them, asking doubts. I can just go up in the class during the break and ask my professor, Professor, I have a doubt in this, and then we can have a conversation or something. I was very reliant on that. And then when the pandemic hit and we moved to an online environment or a virtual environment, the first thing that was difficult for me is to, navigate in my virtual environment, know what to do. The first thing I felt was like it was a one-way communication. If I miss a class, I'll have to sit in a recorded session. But what I learned is that I'll have to be on time, be dedicated, and sit in the class and learn to navigate in my virtual environment, and start seeing on how I can interact with my professor and my fellow students. And we have these little chat sessions in our university where where we have our courses, and at the teams where we can interact with our faculty and our peers. So that is where we learn how to be more engaged and be as if we are in a classroom together.
I understand how difficult that must have been, and I think you have made that transition quite well, Sharadha, though I'm sure the challenges were many and they continue to be. But I think we appreciate your sharing your perspective and experience with us. My next question is going to be to Aradhna, to hear from her. In Sharadha's case, she at least had the opportunity to, attend one semester on campus, and then she had to make this transition to a virtual classroom. But in the case of Aradhna, who's joined the university this year, fall 2020, she's still in India, and she has joined virtually her first semester program. Aradhna, I'd like to ask you, in your case, you haven't even been able to travel to the United States, join the university, attend that big orientation program that US universities put together for the incoming students every year. So it's been very difficult. You've just have to do all of that online, while being in India at your house. So how has this experience been for you? And how difficult was it to sort of start virtually online, whereas you had great plans, perhaps, of attending orientation class on campus and things like that. So do share your experiences. What were some of your challenges in doing this? Joining the university virtually from your first semester itself.
Sure. Thank you for the question, Aparna, and thank you for having me join this panel today, because I'm super excited to be here. To answer your question, starting graduate school online has been a lot of things. I think it's been interesting, it's been overwhelming, it's been exciting, and also a little disappointing, right? Because every time I imagined university, I imagined this big university experience, campus life, and all of that. So in that sense, I'm really jealous of Sharadha starting her first semester online, right? But that being said, it hasn't been all bad, right? Graduate school is difficult, whether it is on campus or whether you're doing it from India. So I think exploring and understanding this whole new education system from the comfort of my home has been, has made the process easier and has made the process less daunting. So in a sense, I've been able to test the waters before diving right.
Right. So you know what to expect in terms of academic, responsibilities, and while you do miss campus life and perhaps interacting with your peers, perhaps, as you say, being in the home environment at least prepares you for what to expect from an academic perspective. You know how much of work is waiting for you when you get to the campus, perhaps, right? Okay. So I'll head back. I'll head back to our faculty members now. Let me get this question to Dr. Ryman. Students are very conscious of their, grade point average, GPAs, and they're striving their best to sort of, do well and, get good grades. Now, I understand that in this pandemic situation, many universities have sort of changed it to a pass and fail kind of a system. How would this impact their GPAs really? And what would be the equivalency of this pass-fail sort of system to the traditional GPA grade point scale that you have, the 4-point scale that you have? And how does this really impact students? I mean, would you be able to throw some light on that?
Sure. Yeah. So this is again one of those challenges of the way students think about their education, and there's the engagement with our material and getting better at what you want to learn about, and then there's also just the very practical, strategic sides of education when you worry about your next step for applying to graduate schools or beyond, and then you worry about things like your GPA. So my first comment is just to make sure that you're aware as you can be of your university's policy, right? So there has not been a global change to that. So each university, some universities just shifted everything to pass fail. Students didn't have a choice in that. Others gave students a choice that they had to, they could wait till the very end of the semester when they saw their grade, then they could change. And then others have said that, there was a certain drop point during the semester where you had to choose. So the first and foremost, just know what the policies are, so you're making informed choices for yourself. I would then say consult with an advisor to make sure that the choices you make sense, right? Because so how it actually affects your GPA really would ultimately depend on what GPA you have and what grade you'd be getting in any given course, right? So if your grade in a course is lower than your GPA, it's going to pull your GPA down. If it's higher than your GPA, it's going to pull your GPA up. I mean, Ganesh is, I'm not the mathematician in the room here, but, I think I have that right. No, joking. So again, that's a strategic choice that a student has to make. The universities had to shift a bit as well in terms of, there are some policies that if you take a prerequisite pass fail, then you weren't allowed to, you couldn't take a prerequisite pass fail in order to advance to a higher level course. So we had to make some accommodations for that as well. But the key, again, I think, is in the mindset of the student that for some students, shifting to pass fail takes a lot of stress off, and they can then focus really on the, again, the key ideas and not be so stressed around the exams and really thrive in that environment. For some students, shifting to a pass fail sort of kind of took the gasoline out of the tank for them, right? And then suddenly, well, what, the grade was for them was the motivator. So I think there too, knowing yourself as a learner, what's motivating you is going to be an important element in making that choice. So it's not just the strategic outcome in terms of your GPA, but it's also about what drives you through the semester, and knowing yourself and making a choice that's in alignment with your own educational goals, educational motivations. And so I think, again, that might be a different answer for one course versus another course, right? If it's if it's something that's right in your subject and you really want to dedicate yourself to that, that might make sense to sort of keep that as a graded course, because that's something you want to have on your transcript going forward. Versus another course that might not be something that you are enamored with, and therefore, might want to sort of take some of the heat off yourself. So that's a complex answer to a straightforward question, but I think each student's situation is so unique. And again, that's why I would say talk to your faculty if you're not sure what to do, what the right thing for you to do long term is, or what the right thing to do for your short term is, and then talk to your academic advisors. At Lehigh, students can do both, right? They can talk to both an academic advisor who can help them think about how to progress through their degree. They can also talk to a faculty advisor who might help them think about the impact of their individual coursework or the curriculum related to their major. So ask questions. I mean, this is always good policy, right? Or good advice. Yeah, don't assume that you know what the right thing or the best thing is for you in the moment or long term. Get some advice from other people, and then make a choice that seems to suit you and your own educational and career goals.
Right. So like you say, I think it's a good point that they must consult with their academic advisors at their respective university campuses, so that they get a good understanding of what it means for their academic future. Are there any points, Dr. Balasubramanian, that you'd like to add on this particular topic as well, since you're perhaps interacting with students and also giving them these grades or the pass-fail thing? So I'd like to ask you, from your perspective, if you have any points to add.
No, I guess Greg has kind of touched upon all the relevant points. The choice of, again, flexibility in the sense of grading has also been one of Lehigh's premier aspects to deal with this situation. And again, students have had the choice to kind of consider a grade or a pass-fail situation depending on what their preference has been, what their motivation has been with the course, or where do they see the usefulness of the course, whether it's just another thing that they want to add to their transcript, or is it another thing they want to basically get a learning from. So that's kind of been pretty easy for students to kind of make a choice in terms of how they perceive the usefulness of that particular course.
My next question is again to you, Dr. Balasubramanian. From the faculty perspective, what were some of the challenges you had to face, or in terms of making this transition yourselves to teaching online, where earlier a large part of your classes were in-person interaction or small group interactions with students? So what have been some of the challenges as a faculty member for you, and what are some of the support the university provided in putting together these virtual classes for your students? Please do share your experience.
Sure. So most of the faculty at Lehigh, we are very much involved in active learning. So when I say active learning, we are basically using engagement techniques such as in-class peer learning, in-class problem solving, group projects, experiential learning, which is basically learning through demonstration projects and so on. So a lot of our courses, definitely in engineering, are active learning courses, and so that transitioning active learning to an online platform is a humongous challenge. So one of the things that we as faculty, I can say that for a lot of us, we miss is the active engagement. And not only from the student side, I mean, from the faculty side, like these engagement activities help us pick up a few things during the course of a semester. I mean, we also get to learn from the students a few different things, or we may be directed towards a perspective we had not thought of. And so that kind of things are, I mean, those kinds of opportunities are missed because of lack of physical engagement. Although in the virtual world, we can still see some of those happening. When we do some of the problem solving synchronously, we are able to see that happen. So one of the transition, I'll give you a quick example. So in one of my courses, we do a demonstration, a project demonstration during the semester. So when the students are actually given a design project and they have to build and show us that the engineering principles are applied and it's working. So that has not happened this year. So what I have done is I have actually transitioned it to a demonstration project at home. So they have been given a project to use their engineering knowledge to do something with things at home in their kitchen. And they are going to use that as a demonstration and prepare a video and put up. So we are trying to do our best in whatever ways we can to kind of still accommodate a lot of those nuances in our courses. And the university has been pretty flexible and helpful in this, that they have kind of given us resources. They've still given us quite a bit of freedom on how we want to transition to this process. Again, definitely tools such as like iPads and Remarkable and other kind of writing accessories have been kind of highlighted to us, or kind of resources being made available for us to kind of acquire them. But in addition, there have been a lot of these online and virtual training programs that have been made available, which have kind of helped. Again, these all have different foci, I would say, to kind of what aspects you're looking at. And so each faculty has a different style of teaching, and they have been able to adapt accordingly or choose their technology and the mode of teaching accordingly.
As much as you said, Dr. Balasubramaniam, as much as it's been a challenge for students, it's perhaps also been equally tough and challenging for faculty members who are trying to put together all the resources, all the materials, so that their students have a seamless education experience, really. At the end of the day, I think all universities their efforts are directed towards making this experience as best as they can for their students. I'm sure both at Lehigh University and at all the other universities in the US, I think these efforts are all focused towards, providing the best opportunities and options for students. Coming to students, my next question is for Sharadha. From having a run of the campus, going out for movies with your classmates and friends, hanging out together, I'm sure you did a lot during your first semester at UT Dallas. So what are you doing how are you sort of interacting with your friends who study with you in your course, in your program? How are you able to sort of, are you doing things online with them? Are you hanging out online with them? Is it the same? What's it like now?
So after this transition, after the academic transition, with times being flexible, we are able to hang out, virtually in Zoom calls. We're able to play online games that, we can have a Zoom call or interact with them through that. And we also have a lot of club activities through which we can interact with our fellow student members and my friends. So usually we used to have to go to the university to host an event. We used to have speakers, both academically and for cultural activities. We used to have speakers and other events where we have seen our seniors arrange so much for us. And then when we transitioned virtually, we were like, okay, what are we going to do now? But then when we started figuring it out, we realized that there is so much we can do online. There is so much we can do through the social media platforms that we can give the experience from home for all of them. We can, arrange a good Zoom session or a virtual session with a speaker who will be ready to share their experience with us, from the comfort of their home, and we students can actually experience that from home. So all that was new to us, and it was actually very interesting to explore and find out.
So a lot of universities have so many clubs and extracurricular activities on campus, which give you so many opportunities to make new friends. Not people who you were just studying with in your classrooms, but other people from other departments and other countries. Now all of that has sort of gone away with this pandemic because everything is virtual. So are you able to even participate in any clubs or extracurricular activities, Sharadha? And I mean, how is that happening virtually? And I mean completely non-academic sort of events.
Yes, for interacting with students, what has gone down most is that the sport activities where we get to go to play table tennis or pool with other students, mingle with other cultures. That has gone down drastically for us. Even now, if we go to the university, they are open. We are following all the social distancing protocols and the safety measures, but there is so less people. I see only like 10% of what I used to. So that has gone down a lot, but we are actually interacting a lot in the virtual events where we conduct webinars with the incoming students and with our fellow students, where we sit and discuss what we can do next, what we can do for the club, and how we can promote the clubs and everything. And we do social events where we celebrate small festivals through virtual platforms. Be it meetings or we do recorded sessions where we just interact and then give the experience to the students that they are actually attending an event on the campus.
Right. Just a minute here now to give a shout out to our online audience, which is watching us on Facebook. I would request you all to start posting your questions in the comments section. When we come to the Q&A segment, I will take your questions and share them with our faculty panelists as well as our student panelists. Sharadha, just coming back to what you were talking about, I was just wondering, we've just had the Diwali festival that's just gone by. How did all of you Indian students celebrate that on campus? Because I've heard from so many Indian students that the Indian Students Associations put up a big event for Pongal or Diwali or Holi and such big Indian festivals. So how was that celebrated on campus this year? Were you able to meet people, do something, or was that also some kind of a virtual activity this year?
It had to be virtual this year because things being very uncertain. The university has taken maximum precaution and asked us not to do any on-campus events with other students. So we did an online event with our Indian Students Association that all the officers and the seniors, we all got together, put up little videos of us celebrating Diwali from here, and our officers from India and all the other incoming students as well. We got little videos of them wishing in their language and from their homes, from the comfort of their homes. We got little videos of them, put them up together, and then after Diwali, we just put that up on the social media, to show that, even in these difficult times, we are here at home celebrating with the people who are close to us. And we are still together, connected virtually.
I think that's where the resilience comes through, that yes, times are difficult, times are challenging for everybody around the world. No country has been spared by this pandemic. And I think our students are showing the way that, they can be resilient and they can make the most of this difficult situation as well. My next question is to Aradhna. Aradhna, on campus, you would have had this, opportunity to, meet new students, incoming, students who are from different countries, different backgrounds. It would have been a great experience. How are you able to do that virtually? How was your orientation program really? How was that did you have that virtually? I'm sure, but how did that go? And how are you being able to interact with other students? Are you only able to interact with students who are from your respective program in the psychology department, or are you able to interact with other students from other departments? Has there been any effort by the university to sort of organize some kind of a group chat or some program or initiative where you get to meet students from other majors or other departments, or or even students? You're a PhD student, so how, are you able to interact with someone who's doing a bachelor's program, or are you able to interact with someone in a master's program? How are you able to do that right now?
So most of my interaction has been with students from the psychology department, because we have classes together, we have meetings together. But I have also had the opportunity to interact with other students from different departments, especially during orientation. And the Center for International Education also hosts, a lot of webinars and a lot of information sessions where we come together and they help us process things and understand the whole situation better. So in that sense, yes, not as much as I'd like, but definitely we have had the opportunity to interact with other students.
So what about your academic work? I mean, you have to work perhaps jointly on academic projects, and you also have to, collaborate with your advisor and faculty. You're in a PhD program, so that much more interaction with your faculty. So how has that gone? What has been your experience so far from the academic perspective? What has it been like?
So with students from my cohort and senior students, the psychology department, I have classes with them, so I get to interact with them. They've been extremely helpful, especially the senior students, and faculty and my advisor as well. They're quick to respond via email. So, if I have any queries, I just drop them an email. But if I feel like I need a Zoom session to understand something better, they're happy to set that up as well. So that way, they've been very understanding, and that's been extremely, extremely helpful. With regard to meetings, like my cohort, we meet once a week, and we make sure we meet and then we catch up. And even though we haven't met in person, it's nice to have that virtual interaction and just get to know each other before we actually meet in person.
Dr. Raman, I'd like to direct my next question to you. Given the restriction of going out and about in this pandemic situation, and being cooped up 24/7 at home for a lot of students, being on the virtual realm all the time, whether it's for your classes or even to interact with friends, you're online, either on social media or other chat rooms and so on, it can be quite overwhelming for students. What are some suggestions that you have to offer to students in terms of how they can manage their physical and mental well-being? And what are some of the services and support services being provided at Lehigh that you could sort of share as best practices with our students today?
Sure. Yeah, this is a critical topic. And I think something that, as with each passing week, we've become more and more aware how important this is to attend to not just our students' intellectual and academic development, but also to their emotional and physical well-being. I guess physical well-being was at the heart of what we were concerned about, right? Thinking about pandemic and safety and all those things. But the emotional well-being sort of, I think with each passing week sort of becomes, again, a bigger toll on all of us, right? And so how do we provide services for students? And one thing that, like I mentioned earlier, that every element of the university had to shift to this remote. So that was the same thing true for our counseling services, our various support services, affinity groups. So everybody began to offer their services, activities, orientation activities, meetings in a virtual environment. And then, a few weeks in, we started to hear from our students, like we're, staring at a Zoom screen, for 10, 11, 12, 13 hours a day. And that, that just begins to sort of drain you in a way, right? So how do you also begin to counsel students about how to step back a little bit from the same kind of modality of engagement? So what does that mean? I mean, I think that sometimes that just means taking care of your physical health in terms of how you're eating, whether you're exercising, whether, reminding students that it's safe to go outdoors, right? If you're not in isolation or quarantine, right? It's safe and encouraged to go outdoors and go for a walk. We're fortunate at Lehigh. We're sort of an urban campus with a lot of rural areas right behind us. So there's many places where you can get outside to exercise, to walk, get the sun on your face, and get your body moving. Those kinds of things are really important. And again, that requires some adaptability, because a lot of things that would draw people to do those outdoor activities were oftentimes very social, right? So again, it took some shifting in how you would motivate yourself to do that kind of work. Again, I would say don't feel like you have to go it alone, right? Seek help, right? Seek guidance, seek counselors, whether that's in the form of your friends, your family. Have somebody who is your sort of trusted person to complain to, right? We always say, like, you don't want to complain to everybody all the time about everything. That can also be exhausting for yourself and those who you're complaining to. But it's good to have someone to complain to, right? And that that you can just say how awful things are and how difficult things are. And then other people who are there in a different role, right? To help you sort of think about what else to do, what's a new way of approaching your physical health, your emotional health, and then rely on expertise too, right? So that, again, universities have well-staffed counseling centers that can meet with students even in a virtual environment and give them professional guidance on things to do. And I think that's an important distinction to make too, right? Sometimes it's just about our well-being. Other times there are bigger issues that we would, and that's often a concern for us faculty, right? We want to give good advice, but then there's a certain point where we're also at the end of our expertise about mental health, right? And then so the key for that is helping students to get a lot of support from within the classroom, and then recognizing when a student might need additional support. So we've encouraged our faculty members to pay attention to, if a student isn't showing up for on class, or they are consistently late with missing an assignment, that might be a sign that something else is going on. And oftentimes faculty members are the first people to notice that, right? And if you do nothing, then it's a missed opportunity to try to help a student. So encouraging faculty members that in addition to their intellectual role with the students and academic role, they also have this obligation to sort of pay attention to how students are doing. Not that they have to necessarily do that work themselves, right? But then at least reach out to the student to recognize that they might need some additional support, and then helping them get connected back with dean of student staff or the counseling staff at the university. So it's a team sport, right? To support a student, right? And no one person can do this by themselves. So we've tried to help make sure faculty members know about those resources for students, that that they share those with students. They encourage students to get involved with some of the things that our students on the panels were saying, like connect with the other students, connect with your non-academic groups, get involved in social organizations, connect with your academic work, and then also, rely on the professional services that are available to you as well, as needed. So a lot of it's about raising awareness, and then sometimes just nudging students towards opportunities, right, around these things, what's available to them, make sure that they know, and then letting them know that it's okay to recognize that you had a hard day, right? And you might need a little extra time on something, or you might need someone to talk to, and that's part of how we're going to get through this whole thing is by talking to each other and leaning on each other when we need it.
Dr. Balasubramaniam, I'd like to ask you, as an academic advisor, you might have students who you find are rather shy or a little introvert in seeking help, or who find it awkward to say that I have I'm feeling uncomfortable with this whole virtual situation. So what are some things that you have sort of done to help some of your students who are finding this a little difficult to handle this pandemic situation? And are there any suggestions and tips that you can offer to students who might be watching? There could be students there are students even in India who are doing they're taking classes online. So are there, as a faculty advisor, as an academic advisor, are there any suggestions you could offer to them as well on how they can deal with this situation? Sure. And how to sort of manage their mental and physical well-being? Yeah.
Sure. So very well said. I mean, there are students who kind of have been a little introvert, have had concerns about coming out with their difficulties in this online environment. So what we have tried to do is we have tried to set up certain recitation sessions or like help sessions, where we kind of, either myself or some of these senior students or the teaching assistants have kind of just tried to understand in a more collegial ways. A lot of times students don't want to open up to the faculty. They are more comfortable opening up to their peers or even to the teaching assistants, whom they see as a bridge between themselves and the faculty. And that kind of has helped get them up to speed with certain things. I mean, we have also been very cautious in not over stressing them with assignments and activities that would otherwise we would probably be able to do when they have a peer environment or kind of an in-class environment. So we have kind of taken an approach where they have had to learn as we go, rather than kind of come with a lot of preparation and just be ready to get the ball rolling. So those kind of little subtle changes have been implemented in several courses to kind of ensure students don't feel too overwhelmed. And with regards to the mental well-being, I mean, I agree with Greg on this. And one thing which I would like to add, I mean, having come from India myself, I think it's picking up a hobby, like a physical hobby, would be a great thing to kind of relieve stress. kind of distract yourself from the Zoom sessions throughout the day. And many students who come from India are not very comfortable with cooking. They learn cooking as they spend their graduate life. And so this is a good time maybe to pick up cooking as a hobby. And that will help you kind of learn how to cook yourself, but also take your mind off of these challenges of continuous online learning.
A lot of the mothers and parents watching this program would probably be very happy with you for, for saying that, Dr. Balasubramanian. I'm sure they've been trying very hard to get their children to learn cooking earlier, but then, as you say, if this is, I mean, the pandemic is an opportunity, you know, you can convert the challenge into an opportunity at learning something that you've never tried before. So that's really a good suggestion. Yeah. I'd also like to understand from both Dr. Ryman and from Dr. Balasubramanian about, is there anything the university is particularly doing to ensure peer interaction between students at Lehigh? Are you putting together any events or programs virtually which ensures students across majors, departments, or across the level of study are interacting with each other? And what are some of these initiatives that you've taken up at Lehigh?
I'll start, and then if that all right, Ganesh. And so you had mentioned earlier, like some of the orientation activities. So at Lehigh, we our on-campus students were primarily international students and first-year students who had the bulk of our on-campus experience, and then we have a number of other students who are then living nearby but not on campus. So as I mentioned, a lot of the Dean of Students work in orientation just had to sort of move virtually, right? And so there was still a very rich array of different activities that they could do. And some of them were very, large group, kind of more webinar type situations. But then that's nice because you get the big group experience, but then you also miss out on the individual. So then they were also followed up with a lot of small group discussions, small group orientation activities that happen just really at the very start of the orientation activities. And then at Lehigh, we have something called a 5x10, which is requires first-year students to engage in 10 different activities, within across 5 different categories. And those are all sort of extracurricular, some non-academic, some quasi-academic. But those are events, and some of those were in person, right, for the students who were on campus, and some of those most of them were remote. But that was just a way to give sort of some structure to the students, that saying like, okay, get your courses figured out, but then there's also these other things that are happening. We made them required just because, again, if you're a first-year student and you know about all these clubs or events or organizations, but you're not quite sure which one, sometimes you might be a little reluctant to jump in. Whereas if it's required and all first years have to do it, you're going to get a sampling of some of the different people on campus, some of the different activities on campus. So at least you have a ramp up into your second semester. And that's a way to, you get to know more people on campus, you get to know other peers in those organizations. And then the other side of that too is something that we've encouraged. So I direct our Center for Innovation, Teaching and Learning, and so we ran a lot of the faculty development workshops over the summer to help faculty prepare. But we also partner with a lot of folks across campus, and come back to this word engagement too, right? So if you're teaching a class and it's all one directional, and I'm just talking at you as a faculty member, right? I'm missing out on an opportunity for peer-to-peer conversations, right? Ganesh mentioned a moment ago, oftentimes we learn best from our peers or near peers. And so I think for faculty members to think about how can you deliver content, and then in this active learning modality, how can you use Zoom to have a breakout rooms for students can then talk to each other on some project or solve some problem or engage in some conversation. And they need a little guidance. We all need some guidance on how to do that well, right? I think faculty members need some guidance on how to think about that. Students need guidance. You can't just throw them in a room and say, discuss, right? It has to be some work to be done or some guidance on how to do that. But those moments when we hear back from students, those really are valuable, right? Because now they have a chance to not just have their cameras off and sit in listening in a passive modality, but now actually put the content into their own words. And the same thing's true for these extracurricular or co-curricular activities, right? So some of it is just passive reception, but some of it we really want students to be talking to each other. So this idea of peer-to-peer learning is really critical to a lot of what we try to do here, and that's sometimes engaging upper division students to be, we call them griffins on campus. So they sort of they're kind of mentors to the undergraduate students. So if you jump into this system, there's a lot of people who are there to help guide you, but again, it still requires you to sort of make an effort on your end too to show up for those things, right? So if you show, and I don't mean just log on, I mean like show up and actually participate in your small group, and you know, when someone gives you a challenge to step outside your comfort zone and feel comfortable talking in this environment. And I know that that's, you know, there's a diversity of reasons why some people might be reluctant to do so. So I wouldn't pretending this is easy. But those are some of the ways that the university has structured to create these opportunities. And then I think just again reaching out to students to encourage them to jump in where it makes sense to. You know, my go-to line is always don't do everything, right? Because that would be overwhelming and you'd be on Zoom 24/7. But don't do nothing, right? So find a few things that are meaningful to you, connect with other students, and connect with the resources on campus, connect with your faculty, because I think doing so really gives you a good foundation that will kind of carry you through the semester in your career.
Dr. Balasubramanian, any thoughts you'd like to add?
Well, just to add to that, the other opportunity, and I think this is more true for graduate students, that kind of Lehigh has offered now. I mean, we used to have departmental seminars where eminent faculty and scholars from all over the world used to come and deliver lectures, but those used to be very departmental in a sense, like not many from other departments used to come in, primarily for like scheduling issues and things like that. But now it has all gone virtual, and we have kind of tried to dedicatedly see the kind of channelize those seminars across campus. So not only are the students who are in that particular department engaging with the speaker or with those presentations, but we are now trying to germinate some seeds of interdisciplinarity through those approaches where a student, let's say in chemistry, can actually learn about topics in mechanical engineering, and that may kind of give them some new ideas or new opportunities to think about. So that's kind of one other way of engagement which the university and the departments across campus are trying to promote.
So that's really a good sort of bedrock for integrative sort of learning as well, and interaction across majors, as you mentioned. Right. Right. So a lot of students, I'm not sure how many students at Lehigh have joined this year in fall 2020, because what we've been hearing from students, many of them decided to defer to either spring next year or to fall next year. And perhaps that was the case at Lehigh as well. So my question is again to both our faculty speakers today is, for students who might be looking, who might sort of be looking to join the spring 2021 semester, should they also be looking, should they also be expecting to sort of have this hybrid learning sort of module where they might get to attend a few classes online, whereas the rest of them might be virtual? Is that something that they should be expecting? Because the pandemic doesn't seem to be slowing down at all. On the contrary, this winter season, it just seems to be getting worse across the world. Would you be able to share some thoughts on how things are being planned at Lehigh?
Sure. Yeah. So I think it's helpful to make a differentiation between, say, you know, spring 2020, right, when everything sort of happened very quickly. We had to transition, and we were all Lehigh was fully remote, right? Almost every university was, right? And so that was a very rapid transition where we were just trying to figure out how to, you know, keep things going through the end of the semester and do it well. And then we had the summer to figure out fall, because as you mentioned, I think even then we anticipated this was going to carry through the fall. And so I think we had some time to assess how things went in the spring, do some things differently in the fall. Ganesh mentioned a lot of the different ways that faculty members have been just remarkably creative in how they've developed their courses and adapted to this new environment. And then as fall semester has rolled along, I think it, you know, gradually has become obvious to all of us paying attention that spring is going to be like the fall, right? In many respects. Now at our university, one thing that's been really challenging is that we really prioritize flexibility for our students. So we told students that no matter where you were, whether you were overseas, or if you were on campus or remote or whatever it was, that we were going to figure out how to make every course available to you. So we've shifted that a bit in the following sense. So we still want to make sure that all the core courses are available to anybody, no matter where they are. But we've been a little less reluctant to have some courses that are just in-person classes, right? And some of this has to do with our labs, where you really do have to be in the lab for some particular experiences. Some of it has to do with discussion courses, where you really need to be in a room physically with people. And so we set aside a small number of courses. I think it's maybe around 8 to 10% of courses fall into that category now. So that if you're, and the goal is that for the people who can be there, let's focus on that, make that an experience that makes sense for the people who can be there, right? Now, the remainder of our courses are going to be in this hybrid opportunity. So in those situations, then what we encourage faculty members to do was, even if you were teaching a primarily remote course, that you would think about some ways over the course of the semester to connect with with your on-campus students, right? And then to do things equitably as well for your remote students. But what happened oftentimes in the fall was, even some of our hybrid classes, they tended to gradually shift to more and more remote. If you had say 10 students in a classroom and 10 students remote, and then maybe the next time you have 9, and the next time you have 8, and the next time you have 7. So students began to wrestle with that difficulty of coming to class, and we had an outbreak mid-semester, so we had to go fully remote. And it was tough after that to then reignite that. So we're trying to sort of hit the reset button a little bit for spring, right? And say, so we're going to have some, if you're on campus, this is what your experience would look like. You will get some, more opportunities for in-person interaction with your faculty members. Here's what the remote engagement will look like. And then here's what we are hoping more faculty members will do to try to create a little bit more of a return onto campus. Now, all this is said with a big caveat, right? We don't know what spring will actually look like. So in the back of all of our minds, we're also having to have this thread of, I keep coming back to Ganesh's opening words here, right? Flexibility, right? So you might have to, on Friday, learn that you have to shift everything to remote on Monday, or vice versa. And so the core thing we've been emphasizing for faculty members is to develop your courses such that you can quickly make that adjustment, right? Because we're living in a space right now around adaptability, and we just oftentimes we can plan as great as we want to for February and March and April, and here we are in November, and that's no one has that crystal ball to see what that's going to look like at that age. So flexibility is key for the faculty designing it, and then flexibility once we get into it, to try to create the best experience for our students, no matter what the situation on the ground is with the pandemic. That's the only way we're going to be able to pull this off and keep everyone as safe as we can, while also keeping the educational experience as strong as it can be.
My next question is to both Aradhna and Sharadha. So what I'd like to understand is, what were some of the support services, at your respective universities that were provided to you to help you in, either making the transition from in-person to online, or starting off online classes? I'd like you both to share some of the, services provided by your university, respective universities. So Sharadha, you could start.
So the first thing that we had was when it was decided that we are transitioning online, all the students and the faculty members were sent out emails and given proper guidance and training on how to transition, how to efficiently use your, online platform, to attend classes, to submit your assignments, to interact with your fellow students. And if we had any doubts in that, if we had any difficulty, we could, contact the IT department of our university, and they would be ready to help us at any point of time. So that was one of the major helps that we got from the university during the transition. And we used to get, we still get actually regular health checkup forms that are made mandatory, that we just have to fill them every day. So will we be attending the campus today or not? That is, it's just a simple question. So it actually tells us, how important it is to, look after our health, to know that you need to inform the university if you're, going to the campus, and if you have any difficulty, if you're feeling illness or something, you just have to tell them that this is why you're not coming to the campus. So they make it a point to, make us understand that it is important to look after your health and keep a check on yourself. And if you're coming to the university, you need to have a perspective that you will be in contact with a few people, so you'll have to take care of yourself and the environment. You're on mute. Yeah.
Over to you, Aradhna.
Yeah. So for me, so university itself has a lot of resources. They have counseling services, they have workshops on mindfulness, on stress release, right? So they have all these resources. And there's also the Center for International Education that has all these webinars to help us, process everything and understand everything. So the university does have a lot of resources, but what's helped me personally the most is just having a very understanding peer group, right? They're very understanding of the time difference. Even the faculty, right? Sometimes waking up at 3 a.m. is difficult, right? So they make it a point to record those sessions for me, right? And anytime I don't understand something, I can always reach out to them and they're happy to help. So I think that's been most helpful in my case.
Great. Thank you to all the panelists for giving their insights and answering all the questions that I've put to them, because these are questions that we've been hearing from students in our region, and all the doubts about whether we should consider going abroad for education at all now in this situation. So that's the questions that we've collated and put across. We will now move over to our Q&A segment. We've started receiving some questions from our live audience on Facebook, and I will read them out and sort of address them to each one of you and call out your names to respond to them. In fact, Aradhna, taking a cue from what you just mentioned about the time difference, we have a question from Sarvesh Sadasiva, who asks, how is the time zone differences being managed for these virtual classrooms? Would any of the faculty members like to share any pointers on how at Lehigh you're managing this? And then I can get into students also to talk about it.
I'll throw out a quick thought, and then Ganesh, maybe you can add to it. So generally speaking, we encourage all faculty members to do a survey of their students, right before the first class even met, to just ask, what time zone are you in? What do you expect to be in? Because again, there's no one approach that's going to work, depending on where students are. And then based on how many students you had that are in different time zones, you might have to make some adjustments to your expectations and modes of delivery. So, one of the things that Ganesh mentioned earlier was, and Aradhna mentioned was, recording, either pre-recording or recording the live session, permissible for students to not attend the live session on occasion. I think making it really clear which things do matter for logging in. So if there are some classes where you really do need to be there, making it clear to students when it's okay to not, when it's okay to be there. Having office hours in ways that meet the needs of your students. So that might mean for a faculty member to have office hours very early or very late, and many of them have done both in really remarkable ways. So I think that flexibility around the curriculum, clarity around when it is important to be live and not be live, so students don't feel like they're getting up for something they don't have to get up for, but when they do get up, it's worth it. And then again, just accommodation of time zone in terms of those small group or office hours. The last thing I'll just add real quickly is that a lot of it has to do with, then if you're doing group work with students, helping make sure that you group students up together so that they are, that they can work together in ways that meet where they are as well. Ganesh, I don't know if you want to build on that by what you've done in your classes. But.
No, that's exactly what we have kind of done. We have ensured that all the material is recorded. So kind of students can at their own pace and in their own kind of time take a look at those content. But again, when we are doing these group activities, we have actually had tried to pair students or kind of connect students in similar time zones, not the same, but at least in similar time zones. Even within the US, we have 4 different time zones. So even kind of coordinating that across globally, that kind of has helped us with some scheduling tricks that we had to pull up together. But yes, it has been not an issue so far.
Our next question is from Sanjeet Kumar, who wants, I think he's wants a very Nostradamus kind of response from the panelists. Perhaps he's asking, any idea how long the virtual classroom scenario is likely to continue? Is there an expected date when classes will move back to in-person? I know it's a tough question, but is there something that Lehigh is contemplating in terms of, for, let's say, at least for fall 2021, maybe hopefully more classes in person?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Looking first again to spring 2021, I would say, you know, we've made some efforts to try to both create more in-person experiences for our students in in-person classrooms, and then, I mean, one thing we're learning now too, right, is that a lot of this is very weather dependent. So even as the spring semester goes along, if things get back under control, you know, locally and nationally. We could see some relaxation of the restrictions, and then some more people might be able to do more things in person. So I think we'll know better as the spring unfolds what that will look like going forward. But I would be very reluctant to say. I mean, we'd all love to say that fall 2021 is going to be back to normal, and we can be hopeful in that regard. But I think being realistic, we're planning for all sorts of scenarios as well. I mean, as I've been involved in these conversations going back to February of 20, when this first began to really raise into our consciousness, I don't think at any point we've known accurately what's going to happen 4 months out. So I'd be very reluctant to say is what we hope and what we're planning for. But I would say we're planning for both, right? We would love to have more in-person experiences, more permission for international students to come to campus who have not been able to come. And we're also preparing just in case that's not possible.
The next question is now being asked of our student panelists. Some of the students want to know whether it's worth really going to the US or joining a US university right now when the situation is, so unclear, and there are so much concerns about, spending so much of money. It does, and going all the way and then having to do virtual classes. So they want to know from Sharadha and Aradhna whether they still think it's worth taking that effort and joining a US university now. What do you have to say? Aradhna, you could go first.
So my course is a 4, 5, 6-year course, right? I'm doing a PhD. So in that case, in my case, I think it is worth it because you will eventually get to campus, fingers crossed, But I think when it comes to a 1-year or 2-year course, Sharadha would be a better person to answer that.
Sharadha?
Yeah, I agree with Aradhna. With her, she will definitely eventually get to campus. We are all hoping for that. But when it comes to a 1-year or 2-year course, I would say we can wait out to see what the pandemic has to offer for us, like what the situation will get better and how it gets better, because it's nothing like going to campus. Like virtually, we have all the services, we have all the experiences, we do everything to get the experience that we get in class, but it's not as good. It's not like we go to the campus. It's a totally different experience, and I would say that it's something that every student has to experience. So I would ask them to wait.
Dr. Balasubramanian, the next question is for you. Having been an international student yourself, you've sort of traversed the entire gamut of experiences of being a student and now a faculty member working in the United States. What's the experience been like for you as an international student in the US? Would you recommend the United States as a higher education for higher education to other Indian students who are watching this program? And what would be some of your suggestions to them?
My experiences has been great. That I can say that in one word. And I thoroughly recommend. So not only because of the academic diversity, but also because of the cultural diversity. I mean, today education is rather global, right? So, I mean, it's important for each student to kind of move and experience an educational environment that is different from where they have been brought up. So I think in that sense, USA offers a wonderful platform for education. I mean, when I talk to students, I mean, they are always concerned about where to go for their education. I mean, they have multiple opportunities across the world, but the one advantage I find with the US are actually two advantages. Is one, there is no language barrier. I mean, students in India are already well trained in English, so the language barrier is not there. The second is the US education system, or the higher education system, for students is very well laid out. So there are no ambiguities. It's a very clear-cut system, trying to understand between the credits and research expectations, and US is at the cutting edge of research. So that also kind of gives students a great platform to build their career from.
One of our students would like to ask, is hybrid learning the future? Do you think this pandemic has taught us that we can do things in a different way? We can reach out to more students, we can do things in a different way. And is it something that will, given the advances in technology and use of new, technology like artificial intelligence and all of that coming in now, would you think that there is a likelihood of how the learning itself will change in the coming years? And my question is to both the faculty members.
I'm happy to speak to that because it's a very wise question. And so when people ask how did you prepare faculty to teach in this environment, my first response is always, we had many faculty members already teaching in this environment, right? Whether pure distance education environments, but just what we used to just call sort of blended learning environments, right? Where you're already thinking about ways that technology can enhance your teaching. People were already doing some pre-recorded lessons so that they could enhance what they would do during their live time classes, using learning management systems to simplify quizzing, to get students more rapid feedback on their performance so that you could then focus in a deeper way, personalizing education. So I refer to the pandemic sometimes as a magnifier and an accelerator, right, for these kinds of things, right? So it took what maybe a group of our faculty members were doing already, and now suddenly everybody had to do it, right? So a group of students were experienced, now everybody had to do it. And so I'm not painting too rosy a picture. I recognize that it's very difficult to be forced into this situation and very hard for students who are having to encounter that on the fly. But I will say that it is sort of a continuity of a trajectory we were already on. Right. So the upside of this, the positive side, is that you have more faculty members aware of the tools that are there, more students who are aware of of the opportunities that come along with this, right? And so when we do get to the other side of this, right, my vision is that with you have creative faculty and students who have more tools, more experience. They know what they liked, they know what worked, they know what they didn't like, they know what didn't work, and there's just going to be a lot better choices being made around all of those kind of opportunities. So that will have an impact both on the experience for students who are on campus, right? We hope that those experiences then, what we've come to really recognize is that the value of being in the same room with somebody, right? That's very precious, right? And so when we get back there, we better make the most of it, right? What's the most logical thing to do educationally speaking when you're together, right? And then what are the other things that you can do that you can still do remotely or that you can still do in an asynchronous environment? And you put all those pieces together and you get a community of people who have experience and insight and technical skills and pedagogical insights. And I think all sorts of wonderful things are going to happen.
We're in the last 5 minutes of our panel discussion today, so I'm going to ask each of our panelists today to maybe sort of provide a closing remark and anything. It can be something you can say about and encourage prospective students from India looking to apply to US universities. Do you have any message for them? Or is there any suggestion or tip that you would like to provide to them on not being too worried about taking the virtual learning experience as it is? So we'll start with Dr. Balasubramanian. Over to you.
So again, it was a pleasure being at this panel. And as a closing comment, I actually have two comments. So one is, again, we all are trying to learn a new process of education, and the engagement from the faculty as well as from the students, both, it's a two-way street, which kind of have to come together to kind of make this successful. So my comment would be to students is take a leap of faith and see how it works. And hopefully you will come up with the learning that is necessary, and you will come up to speed with the process. So it's a new mode of learning, and we hope it'll work for us, but hopefully not for too long when we kind of get back to the normal. And the second comment is applying, if a student is aspiring to come to the US, this hopefully temporary situation should not dissuade them from applying or considering higher education. I mean, this is just a phase that will go away, but the education they get, the experience that they get eventually will stay with them for the rest of their life. So they should not really be distracted by the pandemic with the aspirations about their career.
Dr. Ryman?
Yeah, I have I mentioned my eldest son who was wrestling with internship challenges this past summer. My second eldest son is a high school senior, so facing these same questions of applying to universities and trying to figure out what's next. So I'll share the advice to those on the call to the same thing I shared with them. So I think if you compare yourself, if you spend your time comparing what's happening now with what might have been, right, that's a very depressing sort of circumstance, right? If instead you sort of compare yourself, compare what your options are to what's going to be, right, and sort of setting yourself up to take the most advantage of what's going to be, right? And so again, this hopeful picture, this isn't going to be a forever thing, right? It might not be fall 2021, might not be perfectly normal, but we're going to gradually get back to normal. So if you're not in the game, right, if you're not jumping into a system that's going to be good for you in 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, then you're out of it altogether, and that's not a great place to be. So I guess my encouragement is to find a university or a system, a school that works well for you and your goals. And even if the beginning parts of it aren't exactly what you dreamed it would be, right, it's going to get there. Right. And the other thing I would say to a colleague who had a child who was starting this past year, I said, by continuing on, you're also living this pandemic with your peers, right? And so in 5 years, we're going to all be looking back on this, and what story will we tell ourselves about what we did during this time will shape who we are and who we become, right? So if you withdraw from the world in a certain way, or you withdraw and aren't participating, then you're in some ways not facing the challenges, right? And I put that out very gently in the sense that some people have good reason why they can't. But if you can, right, even if it's not your ideal circumstance, jump into it, make the most of it with your peers, make the most of it with your teachers, make the most of it with the university, what the university offers, and then you're sort of in the stream as things return back to normal again, and you'll be in a good spot to complete your educational and meet your educational goals. So that's my word of advice. With again, full recognition that there's countless nuances with different people's individual circumstances, but I guess stay in the game as best you can is my advice.
Right. Aradhna and Sharadha, maybe a suggestion, one tips that you would like to offer to prospective students or current students who are doing this virtually?
Yes. So to everyone in the same boat as me, if you started online, I just want to say I know it's frustrating and I know it can get hard, but hang in there. Okay, we're going to get to campus at some point. And remember to take care of yourself, mentally, physically. We're all in the middle of a pandemic. So don't be too hard on yourself. And spend as much time as you can with family, because once you leave, you're gone for a while. About it.
Right. We have one question, though it's the end of the session, but I do wish to take this question and I'll direct it to Dr. Balasubramaniam. I wouldn't like to disappoint the student who I think this is an important question and it must be answered. The student would like to understand, how are academic sessions being evaluated? I mean, do you give a quiz or an online test, or how are you doing the exams? They would like that answered. So if you could just quickly provide that input, then we could perhaps close this session.
Sure. Again, we are doing this in multiple ways. We are doing take-home exams, where students are given the exam with a 72-hour window to complete and turn it in. We are doing online quizzes. We are doing exams on course side on a course delivery platform. Some faculty are actually doing exams through the course delivery platform, but with having videos kind of pointed towards the exam sheets where students are writing. So and many of the courses have actually transitioned to projects. So having open-ended questions where students are actually given an opportunity to think rather than just come up with some numerical answers. So we are doing it in various different forms. to make sure the learning outcomes are still maintained.
Thank you so much. Aradhna, your closing comments, anything you'd like to add?
I think Sharadha is the one who has to answer.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. Sharadha, yes.
That's okay. Yeah, I would like to say that there is so much more we can do in a virtual classroom. Though we miss the experience of going to a classroom, going to a virtual classroom, there is so much more we can do. There is so much more we can explore. So I would encourage all of them to come forward, take the leap of faith. Let's go with the flow. Let's see what happens. But, it's all worth it. Definitely worth it.
Thank you so much. I'd like to give a big thank you to all our panelists who've joined us today, who provided us the important insights that are essential for our students to understand what it's like to make this transition. All of them have said the same thing. It's not easy, it's challenging. They understand and appreciate that. They've been through the process themselves. So whether they are administrators, faculty, or students, everybody has found it challenging. But everybody has made the transition, and everybody has found resources, support services that their universities have provided, or they've themselves come up with ideas and strategies to sort of, work through this pandemic situation. Like all our panelists said, it's not been easy, and it perhaps won't be easy going forward because the pandemic doesn't seem to be showing any sign of letting off. And perhaps it's going to be another couple of months. We don't know at all as to how long we will be in this situation. But perhaps I think the best takeaway from this session is going to be that our panelists do encourage students to apply to universities in the United States. So whether you're learning, you're able to get there and attend classes in person, or whether you're doing the session virtually, do know that there are plenty of resources that universities are providing, both from an academic resources. They're providing resources for you to engage in extracurricular activities and clubs and activities. And on the other hand, there are many innumerable resources from the health, from a health perspective, whether it's your physical, emotional well-being, whether you need to see doctors, you need to see counselors. Universities in the United States have sort of stepped forward and provided a lot of resources and understood the situation and directed those resources at students. So I think one great takeaway is that it is students can make the most of what is available. Like our students who were on the panel have said, it wasn't easy, it was challenging, but they have made the most of the resources that were provided to them, and they are now learning to adjust to this new normal. Our faculty members have also shared with you some of the resources and support services provided by their university. At Lehigh University in particular, they've shared examples, and they've also encouraged you to apply. So the best thing I would suggest is, if you are contemplating applying to US universities, do reach out to their admissions offices, reach out to the undergraduate admissions office or the graduate admissions office with your questions and queries, and the universities will be happy to respond and clarify any doubts that you might have about attending virtual classes or going or traveling right now in a pandemic situation and attending in-person classes. I do hope this session was useful and you've learned, not only have you heard directly from the panelists, but then you've also taken away some suggestions and tips that all of our panelists have provided today. Thank you once again for joining us today. This was just the first program that we've at the Education USA Center that we're hosting as part of the International Education Week. We have a series of events coming up. Tomorrow we are hosting an undergraduate education session. So it's called the Roadmap to Undergraduate Study in the United States. We have 5 US universities representatives who will be on the panel. So do send us an email at chennai@educationusa.org if you'd like to know, or you can check the Education USA India Facebook page, or even the US Consulate Chennai Facebook page. There should be some event information available on those pages as well. We look forward to having you all join us for tomorrow's session. Thank you once again to all our panelists and to the audience who's joined us today. Thank you. Bye-bye from Education USA Chennai. Stay connected with Education USA via you can download our social media app, or you can stay connected with us through our Facebook page, Twitter page, YouTube channel, or our Instagram page. We look forward to connecting with you and guiding you on your US higher education journey. Thank you once again, and bye-bye.